Hey, Bob Vilka here for the Friday finish, the week of November 13th. It's deer hunting season, the legislature's gone. Why am I here in a suit on a Friday afternoon? Had the opportunity to address 150 economic developers from around the state today, and they were meeting for a conference focused on population growth for Michigan, or rather the lack thereof. And some of the work that's been done by the state has revealed that, hey, housing is a key issue, perhaps the top issue, finding attainable housing, top issue for young people. And when they're polled about whether or not they would stay in Michigan or come to Michigan for opportunities. So they wanted me to speak about housing and some of the challenges that we're facing across the state. So I was able to name names and point out some bad apples where local governments are actually standing in the way of new housing development, attainable housing development. So we talked about, not necessarily rolling out the red carpet for our industry, but creating predictable partnership types of methods and processes to issue permits, to deal with designs, and to make it easier for those in the industry to work in communities across the state. So wanted to point that out. Your state association has worked hard to really educate, particularly the economic development folks, because the number one issue for new job growth is actually housing availability. We have a number of proposals within the legislature that have already been signed into law by the governor that create some new tools to help provide support for workforce housing. But we have to deal also with some fundamental challenges, things like zoning reform and so forth. And to talk about those things, I'm going to turn it over to Dawn Crandall, our EVP of Government Relations.
Thanks, Bob, and welcome to this week's edition of The Legislature's Finally Gone. Michigan legislatures formally wrap things up on Tuesday at noon. The mostly empty session adjourned sine die, a Latin phrase meaning without day. And adjourning sine die means that the 90-day countdown clock can begin for those pieces of legislation that were signed into law that did not get immediate effect. So what does that mean for us, your lobbyists here in Lansing? Well, we're not sitting around eating bonbons with our feet up. There's still work to be done. So while we might not be lobbying at the Capitol, we are meeting with legislators on issues that impact housing and workforce development. And the Executive Committee of the Housing Michigan Coalition actually met this week to go over 5 pieces of draft legislation that would focus in on zoning and local ordinances. So far all of our legislation successes have been incentive-based. Now we want to look at making change within zoning and local ordinances to make housing a little bit more easier to develop in communities. So with the legislature back home, this is a great opportunity for you to take them out, sit down over a cup of coffee, and really talk to them about the industry and the challenges and opportunities that you are having within the industry within your own communities. And also with the legislature away, we are able to focus on other things that we do at the HBA of Michigan, such as Skill to Build Michigan Foundation, which is the nonprofit arm. So earlier this week, I spent 2 days at the Michigan School Counselors Association talking about opportunities and the tools that we have and will provide to them in their classrooms to open students' eyes to opportunities in construction. So you might recall we have Billy the Builder Bear Builds a House. We launched Katie Leads the Crew. We have an activity book. We were fortunate to get a $2 million grant, you might recall, from the state of Michigan to get the Build Your Future, a complete guide to a career in skilled trades, into the hands of roughly 570,000 students across the state in grades 8 through 12. And so those are things that we work on when we're not lobbying. And then, of course, the other thing you should be receiving in your mailbox this week is an ask letter to support Friends of Housing Political Action Committee. That is what makes our voice strong, by being able to elect legislators to the state house. All 110 state house seats will be on the ballot next year. And so if we would like to have an impact in those races, we need your voluntary financial support. So be looking for that letter in your mailbox. With that, I'm going to be spending some time next week with friends and family. I hope you get to do the same. So gobble gobble, and we'll see you next time.
And that's a wrap for the Friday finish. If you're a hunter, I hope you had a great week in the woods. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.